Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Fine. We started with the core concepts yesterday. We saw packet switching. Just a quick recap on packet switching before I move on to today's topic, circuit switching. All right. Then in today's class, we will also see the difference between packet switching and circuit switching. Fine. So getting on to this. So we saw, as the name suggests, it's packet switching. So we know that the incoming data to a line will be broken into pieces, and each pieces will be of different, of certain bit length, and that will be transmitted across the links. So since a particular data is divided into broken into smaller pieces, each smaller pieces are called as packets. In network term, they are called as packets. Okay. This switching, just it came from circuit switching, because circuit switching is the oldest technology, so they just wanted to retain that. Nothing much about the name. So packet switching, because they are transmitting packets. People are okay. Fine. So we saw two approaches in that, virtual circuit packet switching and datagram packet switching. And I told virtual is connection oriented, virtual datagram is connectionless. So I told the best example suited for this particular virtual circuit packet switching is TCP, which stands for Transmission Control Protocol. This one, for datagram packet switching, since it's connectionless, it's UDP, user datagram protocol. We will be seeing about these two protocols in detail in our further course. So as you can see in circuit switching, you can see that, sorry, in virtual circuit approach, you can see A wants to send some data to D. So A is the sender here, D is the receiver here. In a virtual circuit network, look at this. There is an already a handshake between A and D has already taken place. Fine. So all the bits from A to D will take this path: A to B, B to F, F to G, and G to D. All right. So here there is a reserved path. You will see the same concept at circuit switching, but don't get confused with that. Here, when I say there is a reserved path, it doesn't mean that this B and F could be routers, right? So this B, F and all cannot be used by any other one. B, F can be used by any other transmission. For example, E is going to be the sender, and I is going to, here in this case, I is, if that is going to be the receiver, it can again use B and then H and then come here. Okay, so this B can be used by, so it's E to F, F to B, and H, and it could take this route. All right, I'll just go back again. So for example, E and I. So if E is the sender, I is the receiver, this can opt to choose this path. Okay, here B is reused. All right, F is reused. So this resource sharing is not a problem, but a dedicated line would be there. But there is a quite small difference when it comes to circuit switching. When B and F are used here, they cannot be used by any other one. So that you will see in circuit switching. All right. So all the bits travel in the same path. Okay, they don't take different paths. If handshake has happened between A and D, then it takes the same path. Wherein in datagram approach, since it's connectionless, all right. Look at this example here. A is said to be the sender and X is said to be the receiver here. All right. A is sending 3 bits here, 1, 2, and 3. Sorry, 3 packets here. Here in these 3 packets, 1 and 3 from A, right? 1 and 3 travels via A to I to, sorry, 1, 1 to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to X is the receiver. Wherein the second bit, the second packet, I'm sorry, so it travels from A to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, and to X. So 1 and 3 takes a different route, 2 takes different route, and look at the order here, it's 2, 1, and 3. Here the destination takes care of reordering reordering in the sense taking it in the correct order, because there are protocols for doing that too in a datagram approach. All right, so this is what is about a datagram approach. The package doesn't need to follow the same order, it can go in any order, and the destination, at the destination, the receiver can get that in any order, but it's receiver's responsibility. There are protocols which orders the packets. All right, same picture is given here in the next 2 slides. Then moving on to, then what we saw was how to calculate the transmission rate here. So assuming that there are L bits to be two packets of L bits each to be sent to a different host via a transmission link. All right, so two things comes into picture. One is about the bit size of the packets, and one more is this one, the transmission rate of the link. This link could be an optical fiber, a coaxial cable, or a twisted pair, so its transmission rate differs based on whatever the link is used. All right, so it is going to be, if you want to find the transmission rate or the link bandwidth, all right, if you want to find it, it is going to be L divided by R. So one has to mute yourself. So the packet transmission delay, or the time needed to transmit L bit packet into link, or it is also called as, it's also called as link bandwidth or link transmission rate, all is same. So it's L by R. L bits by R. R is nothing but the transmission rate. R is calculated in bits per second. How many bits are traveled in a second? All right. So this is the packet transmission delay. So when it comes to packet switching, we have to remember a few more terminologies. Consider this slide. The host needs to send 3 packets, all right, and there's one router here, all right, and this is the destination, right? So there are 2 links of RBP bits per second. So what happens first? The source starts sending the first packet. So each travels bit by bit in R bits per second. All right. So L bits per packet, that's sent in R bits per second in the transmission link. All right. So once this router receives the complete packet, then only it starts sending transmitting this to the destination. Till then it will wait. So this has to be a complete packet. So this has to be, the router will wait to get the complete packet. All right. So the transmission rate assuming to be L by R. All right. Once it starts sending, so L by R. So the 1 bit, all right, to start from the source to the destination, it will be 2L by R, the total end-to-end delay, because assuming that there's no propagation delay. It starts at 0 milliseconds, it comes here at L by R, then it starts here and goes here. When this starts sending the first packet, the host will start sending the second packet. All right, so it takes them simultaneously. So this concept is called as store and forward. The router stores each and every bit, so till it receives all the bits of a particular packet, it will wait. So this particular process is called a store and forward. All right, so once everything comes, then it starts sending. All right, so once this starts sending, the router starts sending, the source will send the second packet, and it goes on and on like this until all the three packets are sent. All right, so the transmission delay here is L by R. End-to-end delay is 2L by R. End-to-end means you have to calculate source and destination. Here we are considering there is zero propagation delay. There's no delay in propagating it. Assuming there's zero propagation delay. Okay. Now coming to the other terminologies that we saw in packet switching. Queuing delay and packet loss. So this arrives in a condition where the arrival rate is greater than the transmission rate. All right, in this condition, this will lead to packet loss or queuing delay. So look at the picture here. So the arrival rate here is 100 Mbps, but the transmission rate here is 1.5 Mbps. So its arrival rate is greater. So all in your packet switches, here it is router, right? Router, there's a concept called as buffer. Okay, there's a concept called as buffer. This buffer is of limited space. So it can't, since this transmission rate is less, if it can't hold more than this, either this packets will be dropped or the packet which is there in the buffer will be dropped. So that's based on the routing algorithm. There are many algorithms there. So a packet loss is supposed to happen there. So this is a part of packet switching. All right, there could be a queuing delay or a loss. So queuing delay is the packets have to wait in the queue. That causes a delay. And there are chances that packets will be lost if the buffer is full. So then coming into solving a question that how will the router know which, how will the router know to which the packet has to be sent, to which node, which is the next supposed node the packet has to be sent. So there's some concept called as forwarding table in each and every router, forwarding table. All right, this is there in each and every router. Assume this blue color one to be a packet. All right, a packet will always have many details in it. So one detail is the destination address. Destination IP address. Don't forget about, don't worry about what's IP address and all. We will learn what's IP address, everything, the different types of IP address, classes of IP address and all. So basically it's an address to be to where the packet has to be delivered to. So this packet is it's carrying a detail in the header 0111. So look at the forwarding table. Each and every router, this router will have a forwarding table. This will have, this will have, this will have, and every router in between or every switch in between will have a forwarding table. And in this forwarding table, all right, 0111 is linked to the output link 2. So this router, the first router, right, has 3 output links, 1, 2 and 3. Since this packet is leaded to 2, so it will opt to take the second one. All right, and whatever is given here, from there it will go based on whatever is given there. So the routing algorithm takes care of updating whatever is there in the forwarding algorithm. That's what we saw in packet switching network. So hope you are clear with packet switching. We are moving on to circuit switching networks. This is the oldest technology. Okay, the best examples that I could give for circuit switching networks are radio and traditional telephone networks falls under circuit switching networks. All right, we'll see in detail what it is about. Okay, given here, I have given two pictures here. Have you seen these kind of switching in some olden movies, or very old movies or movies which talks about the past, right? There would be a manual, a person who would be sitting and switching all these different cables so that a person could, talk to the other one over a telephone or receive a fax. Hope you have heard of this term called as fax. I don't know if it's still there, but because of this vast update in the technology, fax and all is gone, I think. So this is an older, very older technology. Actually, a person has to sit there and manually switch all this. So the switching, actually a term came from circuit switching only. I will talk about what a circuit is now. So look at this picture. Okay. Uh, Earlier there were trunk calls made. I don't know if you've heard of this word too. Uh, and you have seen these kind of telephone line, telephones also. It used to be in your grandmother's or great grandmother's home or something like this. So these kind of telephone networks fall under circuit switching networks. All right. Now I'll talk about this each and every word here. What is circuit and how it's switched. All right. Fine. So look at this particular slide. Okay. So in circuit switching, end-to-end resources are reserved for a call. When I say reserved, don't get confused with your packet switching. Here, reserved means it can't be used by anybody else. Wherein there, if it's reserved also, the same node can be used by other end systems. Here, if it's, for example, if A wants to send to D, right? There is a link reserved between A and D. Can you see that red color line? So that red color line will be used only by A and D, even if they are idle, until they themselves leave up the call. That particular circuit will be used by only A and D. Okay, even if they are not talking, or even if it is not used, it is just shared by only A and D. All right. So end-to-end resources are reserved for a call between the source and destination. All right. Look at the diagram. Each link has 4 circuits. Can you see? This is a circuit. Where is this? This is a link. This is a link. This is a link, and this is a link. Each link has 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 circuits. This also has 4, this has 4, and this has 4. Assuming that a call has to get connected between A and D here, all right, there has to be a call setup first. This call has to be, which means that a circuit has to be set up first before they start. Okay. In the call setup phase, what happens is A will say that I want to talk to D. Then from A to D, circuit will be reserved. So in this case, okay, in this case, can you see the second in the top link? This is the second one in the top link, and the first one in this rightmost link. The second one in the top link and the first one in the rightmost link is reserved, which means that this particular one is called as a circuit. The second and the first. So here the N systems are connected to the switches directly. So this makes a circuit. So this, by this term, this particular technology was called as circuit switching. Okay, this is a circuit, and from a second circuit it goes to the first circuit of the next switch, and then it goes to the host. So there are dedicated resources, which means that there's no sharing of the second and first circuit, which is already reserved by A and D. All right. So there is a guaranteed performance here, which means that since the line is dedicated to A and D, all right, the complete bandwidth is only for A and D. But it's not in the case of packet switching networks. It's shared among everyone. All right. So here, if it's 250 kbps, the complete 250 kbps is, so there would be a constant transmission rate in this case. In circuit switching, there would be a constant transmission rate. Okay. So very old traditional telephone networks are very best example for this, and radio stations are also good example for circuit switching. All right. So when it comes to multiplexing in circuit switched networks, there are two types. So now you should understand what a circuit is, right? Here, each and every link has 4 circuits, right? Among the top link and the right link, 1 circuits are used. The second and the first circuits are used. Okay. So this is how this network was called as circuit switching network. All right. So a particular circuit in a link is implemented either by FDM or TDM. FDM stands for frequency division multiplexing. TDM stands for time division multiplexing. I'm sure that you would have heard these terms earlier, but let's see how this works in circuit switched networks. Okay, so the first one we are going to talk about is frequency division multiplexing in a circuit switched network. The frequency spectrum of a link is divided among the connections established across a link. Now you can see a change in the picture. The frequency is divided into narrow frequency bands. Can you see the lines here? All the 4 lines. So assuming this to be a frequency, the frequency is divided into narrow frequency bands. So each and every call will be allocated to one frequency band, and they can use the maximum of it. For example, in this case, there are 4 users who uses all these narrow frequency bands, and they can use the maximum rate of the narrow band. So only these are limited. All right. So in a telephone network, this frequency band is typically with a width of 4 kilohertz. When it comes to radio stations, the frequency band will fall between 88 megahertz to 108 megahertz. So basically, you can implement this circuit switch network in two ways, FDM or TDM. If it's frequency, you are dividing the frequency among the users. The best way you can visualize this one is an FM radio station. For each and every radio station has a different frequencies. It falls under different frequency spectrum. All right. So when it comes to time division multiplexing, all right, here time is divided into time slots. So each and every call will be given a time slot, and that particular call can use the maximum rate of that particular band. All right.
Ma'am, we are still at radio flight.
Huh? Can you repeat?
I think I'm all good. All good.
So here you can see FDM. In FDM, each circuit continuously gets a fraction of these bandwidth. So generally it's in a telephone call, it's 4 kilohertz. Frequency is divided as a narrow bands, and each and every frequency is used. When it comes to time division multiplexing, you can see time slots here. Here there are assuming to be 4 uses. All right. It's divided into 4 time slots. All slots labeled 2 are dedicated to specific sender and receiver pair. Here, can you see all this 2 will be for a specific one. All 4s will be for specific sender receiver, and that goes with in case of time division multiplexing. All right, circuit switch networks can be implemented in either one of these ways. So before I move on to difference between packet switching versus circuit switching, I will just run a video which has a quick recap of what all I told.
Hey guys, this is DG.
So I'll wait for some seconds for everyone to see this. Hope you can. Okay, I'm going to start playing the video. Please concentrate.
Today we will learn circuit switching in computer networks. So let's start. 2 or more devices connect to form a network. In a network, the devices should be able to do one-to-one communication. For this purpose, we can set up point-to-point connections among them via mesh topology or star topology. However, it becomes impractical when the number of computers increases. A solution to this problem is switching, where devices called switches interlinked to each other are used to set up temporary point-to-point connections among the end systems. End systems connect directly to the switches. In a network, there are 2 fundamental approaches to transfer data from one device to another: circuit switching and packet switching. Suppose there are 2 restaurants, A and B. Restaurant A accepts reservation, while restaurant B does not. If I want to go to restaurant A, I will have to book a table. So, when I arrive at the restaurant, I can immediately be seated and can order my meal. On the other hand, restaurant B does not accept reservation. So, when I arrive at the restaurant, I may have to wait in queues before I can be seated. Circuit switching is analogous to restaurant A, which accepts reservation. On the other hand, Packet switching is analogous to restraint B, which does not accept the reservation. That is, in circuit switching, resources are reserved for the communication session. On the other hand, resources are not reserved in packet switching. Having packet switching already discussed in the earlier video, let us focus on circuit switching. Consider a network containing 4 switches interlinked by 4 links. Each link has 4 connections or channels. Host A and host B are directly connected to the switches. If host A wants to communicate host B, the network first reserves a channel in the first and second link, say channel 1 in link 1 and channel 2 in link 2. The combination of channels is called a circuit. So, a circuit is set up between host A and host B. Suppose each link has a transmission rate of 1 Mbps. Since each link has 4 channels, so each channel has a transmission rate of 250 kbps. Hence, each end-to-end connection gets a dedicated transmission rate of 250 kbps. Such a network, where sender to receiver connection receives a guaranteed constant transmission rate with the help of reserved resources, is called a circuit switched network. And the switches are called circuit switches. In the current network, each link has 4 channels. These channels, or the combination of channels, are reserved for one-to-one communication. So, what exactly these channels are and how they are established? The channels are created with frequency division multiplexing or time division multiplexing. Suppose you have a frequency range of 82 MHz to 83 MHz. The difference between higher and lower frequency is 1 MHz. It is called bandwidth. The channels are bandwidth in frequency division multiplexing and time slots in time division multiplexing. So, bandwidth or time slots are reserved for sender-receiver pairs in a circuit-switched network. Communication in circuit-switched network involves 3 phases: connection setup phase, data transfer phase, and connection teardown phase. Suppose host A needs to set up a connection with host B. Host A sends a connection setup request to switch 1. This request contains the address of host B. Switch 1 finds a channel between itself and switch 2 that can be reserved for the communication session. Switch 1 then sends the request to switch 2. Switch 2 finds a channel between itself and switch 3. Switch 3 then informs the host about the connection request. Host B accepts the request and sends an acknowledgement message to host A. Once host A receives the acknowledgement message, the circuit is established. It is called connection setup phase. After the circuit is established, host A and host B can transfer data. It is called the data transfer phase. When one of the two hosts need to disconnect, a signal is sent to the switches to release the reserved resources or channels. It is called the connection teardown phase. Please note that the data in circuit switch networks is not in the form of packets, and no addressing is involved during the data transfer phase. Addressing is used only in the connection setup request to reserve channels for one-to-one communication. After that, the data from sender to receiver is a continuous flow. Circuit switching takes place at the physical layer. Suppose a person is talking to his friend. After some time, both of them stop talking for 5 minutes. For these 5 minutes, the reserved resources are idle and cannot be used by any other ongoing communication because they are reserved for their communication session only. Due to this reason, the circuit switched networks have low efficiency. However, the delay in this type of network is minimal because there is no waiting at the switches, as the circuit is already set up before data transfer. The delay is only due to the time needed to set up connection, transfer data, and terminating the circuit. If you have learned something from this video,
Uh, So having seen packet switching and circuit switching both, right? Now, if you take the internet, it's completely about packet switching. We are not using circuit switching at all. All right. Let's see the common differences between the packet switching and circuit switching. And in the next class, we will be seeing some numericals regarding packet and circuit switching. All right. So in packet switching, okay, it's going to be connectionless or connection oriented based on the protocol. Okay, it was mainly designed for data. It could be any data. All right. It's flexible, which means that resources can be shared here. So the datagrams, if it's out of order, it is assembled at the destination. There is a store and forward concept here. So there could be a queuing loss or a transmission delay. So there is a store and forward in each and every router or a switch that's in between the host and the destination. Don't worry about this layers and all. Layers we'll be seeing in 2-3 classes. So packet switching, the major work of packet switching happens in the network layer. Don't worry about what a layer is, but just understand. All right. So the bandwidth is saved here. So the transmission of data happens via source to the destination via the routers, and there's a possibility of transmission delay. Wherein when it comes to circuit switching, it's connection oriented. Before the source and the destination starts communication, there should be a proper circuit set up between these two. Here you should not. It was only designed for voice. All right, it's not designed for data. When data comes into picture, they will be divided into packets. So when it comes to circuit switching, don't use the term packet. Okay, this circuit switching concept was only designed for voice. Okay, they can either be implemented using FDM or TDM. So the message will be received in the same order. Because there's a dedicated line, there's not going to be any delay at all. So at a constant transmission rate, whatever voice is sent will be received at the receiver end too. Okay, this particular work, the process of circuit switching happens in the physical layer. Don't worry about this layer. Here the bandwidth is wasted because it's only used by one sender and one receiver. Even they are using a minimal amount of bandwidth of that particular circuit, the remaining is getting wasted. But that's not the case in case of packet switching. The bandwidth can be used by any other user, sender and receiver too. Here, if we want to talk in terms of delay, there will be only one delay, which is a call setup delay, only during the setup phase. Only when the link is established, circuit is established between the sender and the receiver, there could be a delay there. All right. The sender has to wait for a complete setup or a complete circuit getting connected to the receiver, then only he can start speaking. So that is only the delay that we can talk in circuit switching. So which is efficient? Obviously it's packet switching, but we need to understand what is the older technology also. All right, with this we'll stop this class. Next classes we will see about certain numerical problems, all right, which falls under packet switching and circuit switching. Fine. Please go through packet switching and circuit switching and come for the next class. Thank you.